Are you helping the daddy? Let me see. Speak. What'd you say? Oh, good boy. Ow, you dog! Okay, I manually introduced a little bit of raw gas down into the cylinder port area. I'm going to stroke it through and let it run down off the piston, down the ports into the bottom chamber. There's water literally coming out of the base gasket right on the side of the engine. I don't know if the video picked that up or not. Look right here when I'm kicking between the base gasket of the cylinder and the top of the engine case. Watch that steamy, fumey pus come out of there. That's either the gasoline that I poured in there to make it have enough fuel to hopefully run a second or so, or it's water. Yep, you heard it pop. Okay, so let's talk about what happened there. When I poured gasoline in there, I flooded it with too much fuel, because it's never going to burn raw gas. You're only going to burn on a vapor. So when I poured the raw gas in there, I knew it wouldn't run. I had to kick it through enough times to get it to vaporize, to create a mist. So I kicked it quite a few times, created a mist, and eventually it had spark, it had enough compression. I knew it would pop off, and it did. So it's possible we don't have a bad crank, and the crank's salvageable. And for that reason, I'm stopping. I'm stopping right now. I do think we have compression in the rings in the cylinder. So I'm not going to kick it anymore or try to hear it run anymore or put any more fuel into it at all until I rebuild this engine. But I am satisfied and happy that I did that, because now I have the knowledge that I heard it pop, I heard it run, I know it's got a spark. When I'm done, it's going to run. I'm just going to have to go through and do a visual inspection on the shift forks, the shift drum, the shift shafts, the gears themselves, the engagement dogs, make sure they all mate and they're not all clapped out and slapping around. And if all that looks good, you know, I'm good enough at looking at those parts, I could probably be confident I got a good trans when I'm done. But having spark and hearing it run a little bit, that's nice. That's comforting. It makes you feel good in your heart that you're proceeding into a project that you know is going to work out. Did I say swing arm? I meant to say subframe. I think I said subframe. That's what I meant to say. Get the subframe off. Most of the hardware on these Japanese dirt bikes, you're talking 5 and 6 millimeter bolts, some cases 8. And then you've got the head sizes are 8 millimeter, 10 millimeter, 12 millimeter, 14 and 17. Some of them use hexes. You'll get 4, 5 and 6 millimeter hex heads. Pretty standard, common, easy stuff. This is that stud where some turkey doodle jammed the wrong nut on the stud, and when I spin it with a wrench, it just keeps spinning and won't come out because the female in the box is damaged. So I'll cut that off with a Dremel tool or something, and then repair that stud and get that fixed. throttle cable. I'm not going to ride the bike like that. See that? Okay, you can see where this got all jacked up and bent up, where somebody had been working on this before. This rubber boot slides over there, keeps excess air from leaking through and dirt from getting in. But I pulled that boot back and you can see the cable damage. See all that rust where it's been that way for a few years probably. I would not ride on that. That's very dangerous, because as I stroke that throttle cable through that jacket, you know, it's returning now, but if it gets rusty or more damaged in there, is it always going to return? So the answer is new cable, period. No questions. The shock. They let the paint get down on the shaft. Look at that. It's horrible. Absolutely horrible. And look, the spring's loose from the collars being up here, because when they painted it, they couldn't spin the collars back down. Yeah, we got some work to do here. No doubt about that. Be careful when you take this stuff apart. Make sure you don't miss any spacers or anything. This shock looks like it has one big bushing where that center pivot right there is all one part. I've seen a lot where there's collars in there. You pull them out, it's easy to lose the collars, and then when you torque it back down, they're not in there to squeeze properly. So make sure you don't lose those parts. If you do drop collars out of these fittings, you've got to replace them. You absolutely have to have them. Riding without them is dangerous. Okay guys, sorry about that. We ran out of memory. I pulled the swing arm and the swing arm pivots off camera, not knowing the camera wasn't running. So I'm going to take some of these swing arm and suspension linkage parts and lay them out and let you know what I'm looking at, what I'm inspecting on these. Okay, what's important as you decide to replace them or not replace them. Okay, so if you take a look at this, pivot. Okay, sorry about the camera guys, I'm not a videographer, I'm a mechanic. But if you look at these pivot bearings, what you're looking for are good quality needle bearings in there that aren't all tore up and rusted. Now there is some corrosion on those, there is. It's a very light little bit of surface corrosion. I don't see any pitting in the bearings. I would say that is acceptable to me. That very little bit of dark brown grease is where corrosion was beginning to occur. But because the sleeves are not seized to the bolts, and because I can grease all that up and they look as good as they do, I'm going to reuse those and sandblast this black pivot where they spray painted it. It looks like hell. But you know, and then you got to worry about covering the end of the bearing and keeping the sand out when you blast it, and you know, that gets complicated. So maybe, depending on how much they cost, maybe I will just put new ones in. The problem I have with the swing arm is they spray painted it. You can see where I don't know if it was kids working on this or who was doing it or what before Mike got this thing, but I don't know that Mike ever had it running. I don't think he did. But this swing arm, the bearings don't look too bad, but one of the spacers is missing. So it was all wobbling all over the place. Thank goodness nobody actually got this thing running and went out and rode it and did any jumps with it, because with one of the bearing spacers out on one side, this swing arm was just, you know, wobbling in the case like this. It was literally just wobbling like this, and totally unsafe to ride. So we're going to put all new bearings in the swing arm itself and get all new collars and spacers and dust seals or whatever Suzuki puts around that swing arm. I'm going to buy all new parts for all that. In other words, these bearings right here where the front end turns on the frame, If these are loose or rusted or busted or pitted, or you got notchiness or all kind of combobulation up in there, they have to be replaced. So you need to make sure that your wheels and their relationship to the frame is secure. And you do that by having good wheel bearings, good swing arm bearings, good pivot bearings, good head bearings. That's all critical to the stability of a safe operating motorcycle. But I'll at least bead blast that body, and I'll wrap tape around the shaft. I'll get the spring off, wrap tape around the shaft, and then bead blast the rest of it so it don't look so bad. But spray painting the shock to the point where the shaft's got spray paint on it, guys, come on, what is that? Really? You gotta look like Ricky Carmichael so bad you're willing to ruin your shock to do it? So, alright.